I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design.
On today's episode, I talk to the amazing Michelle Chalfant. Michelle is a 4-6 emotional generator, the right ankle cross of the Sphinx, and is a licensed therapist, master life coach, author, podcaster, and motivational speaker. Her work has helped people all over the globe get unstuck and find their true self so they can grow their self-worth and improve their relationships, creating a life of true freedom and empowerment. Michelle's podcast, The Adult Chair, has over 8 million downloads and is ranked in the top 3% globally. Blending simple psychology and grounded spirituality, her work gives people the practical tools and techniques they can use to access their personal power and transform their lives. This conversation with Michelle was amazing. I've even gone down the rabbit hole with her podcast, The Adult Chair. It's freaking brilliant. So enjoy the episode. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today, I have a fantastic guest that I'm so excited to get to know a little better, who I kind of feel like is a little bit of a doppelganger of mine, that we've got a lot of similarities. So, Michelle Chalfant, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so looking forward to talking to you because, as I was saying just before we hit record, like when I was listening to your podcast and going through all of your material, I was like, wow, I feel like we're really the same human, like I'm a master coach, so are you, you're a therapist, but it's all about bringing the spiritual part into it. You're now this huge podcaster. So it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm so excited about having this conversation with you. So I always love to start with my guests with this question of, I want to hear your story. I want to hear where you came from to be the human that you are today. And I really believe that many of us, we start that with like a dark night of a soul, or that moment where we're like, wow, I really need to take responsibility for my life, or, oh my God, what the hell is going on? So I'd really love to hear that journey from there to this extraordinary, super successful podcaster and businesswoman that you are today.
Oh my gosh. Such a big question. Let me condense it way down.
Love it.
When I was born and a little girl, like toddler-ish, I'm remembering way back to like even 5-6 years old. I always remembered I felt different and I didn't understand why. And then as I was growing up, I remember feeling like, and I didn't have language for it, but I was always very sensitive, very intuitive. And again, nobody was mirroring back like, oh, you're an empath. Like I didn't know, I had no idea what was going on. I remember in high school, I would be in the back seat of my friends' cars and I would let them know, oh, the police are up there ahead. You better slow down. And sure enough, boom, there was the police. Or, hey, your boyfriend's cheating on you. You better go talk. What? How do you know this? I'm like, I don't know. Like, way back when there wasn't that language, there was no laptop, there were no Google, no internet, that wasn't happening when I was growing up. So I went through life. It was really hard looking back on it. It was really hard because I was so open, so intuitive, and an empath, and I didn't know. So I went through life thinking something's wrong with me. Yeah, something's really wrong with me. I got depressed, but nobody knew I was depressed. I looked, I always could put on my makeup and do my hair, and I always had the boyfriend, and I dressed the right way, and I had the right friends. But inside,
Yeah.
I really felt like I was damaged goods, like something's wrong here. And that is what put me on. So really, when it comes to my spirituality or my connection to something bigger than me, I've never felt disconnected from that part. Um, Even going, like, I was born and raised Catholic. I'm spiritual now. I'm not Catholic now. But even going to church, I remember thinking like there's something a little bit like, I don't quite believe that. I do believe this. I was, even as this
Yeah.
little kid going to Catholic school, like I was like,
Yeah.
this is, why doesn't anyone talk about past lives? Because I believe that. And I remember asking my priest that question. I was 10 or 12 years old. And again, nobody's teaching me this. I just know it. And I went
Yeah.
up to him and I said, what about past lives? He's like, who told you about this? And I said, I don't know. I just remember some of these lifetimes. Like, why don't we talk about them? So again, fast forward. So I go through college. I am functionally depressed. And inside, I feel like broken, like something's wrong with me because I'm not quite like everybody else, but yet I look like everybody else, right? So that put me on the journey of self-help, and I love transformation, to boil it way down. I love to not only work with myself, but work with others and then see and witness transformation. That to me is the most beautiful thing. It's a gift that we can give others. So I went on this journey for myself. I was like, I'm going to figure out why I feel so broken on the inside. So I went on and became, a therapist and took every certification under the sun and training and everything. It was fun because I love to learn too. So, and then I had a private practice. So everything I would learn, I would funnel it through my practice and I would say, hey, maybe this works. And over the years, what happened was I look back on it now, it's like I was always more of a coach / teacher, always transforming, but that was more my style, if you will. And then moving into now, let's bring it back to the last 10 years. So I have this full-time private practice, and I was working with somebody in the early, I think it was like 2013. And he said to me, you've got something really good here. You're talking about this thing called the adult chair. I was like, yeah, I'm creating this model that really teaches people how to become emotionally healthy adults. I want to teach people how to love themselves. I want to teach people that we're not broken like I thought I was, but we just have some, what I called misbeliefs. And I want to teach people how to transform these things. And anyway, so on and on. Anyway, he convinced me to start a podcast after a whole year of like hazing me to start a podcast. So finally I go, fine. So like November 2014, I'm like, fine, I'll start a podcast. I'm like, what do you want me to talk about? He's like, everything to do with, the transformation of people and how you help people become, healthy adults, basically emotionally healthy adults. So that started in November of 2014. And when we hit interesting 2020, it just like skyrocketed. So we went from like, just millions and millions of downloads in the last few years. So that has been so much fun because again, I love to put out free content for people to help them to learn. So people say that it's like getting free therapy every single week because I talk about things like, what do you do if you're codependent or anxious or depressed or anything under the sun? And I do have fun guests on, and I know you're going to be on my show soon. So so I do a lot of shows on my own, and then I also have guests on, but I have that. I eventually developed a coaching like an adult chair coaching certification program because so many people want sessions with me. I'm like, I've got to teach people to do what I do. So I teach that, and I do online courses and another membership, and I'm writing another book right now that'll be out next year. So I've got a lot going on, but that's pretty much my journey. And over the years, I realized I'm really not broken. It really is a misbelief. That's all it is. And I learned a lot of really cool tools and techniques over the years that I've incorporated all that in the coaching program. And that's what I talk about on the podcast too. So does that give you, I was trying to like,
oh my God. No, I love
down.
all of it because I think like just starting at the beginning, I think so many of us think that we're different, that we don't fit in. I was the same. I just shut down after a while. I was like, oh, well, I'm out. I was so shy as a kid and just lived in my external, like just lived inside me. And I was, one of the books that changed my life was Highly Sensitive People because I was like, oh my God, because that was the thing for me that I thought there was something wrong with me. But understanding that I was a highly sensitive person and not understanding how I did that or what was going on, like it really helped me to, for myself go, okay, it's all right. It is normal. There's a whole bunch of us that can do this and have this experience. But before I move on, what I really want to do is I want to dive into, because when you were speaking, of course, I'm nerding out on your human design. And I was thinking, I haven't even shared it with my listeners yet. So one of the big things that, first I need to share with everyone that Michelle is an emotional generator and she is a cross of the Sphinx. So as you were speaking, you were talking about how you just love transformation. And when we talk about an incarnation cross, it's sort of called our job description of our aura. So we don't have to do anything per se, but this is what our energy is going to be doing out in the world. And a Sphinx is all about being lost and then finding a new direction. And they do it for themselves and then they do it for other people. So listening to you do that, and talk about that, I'm like, yep, there it is. Like there's that transformation. Like it's literally your life's work to be on the planet to help people find their new direction and their empowered direction. Does that feel true for you? Does that resonate?
Oh my God. My whole purpose is to help people to really find and rediscover and live from their true self. Yeah. That is what I'm here to do. No doubt. Yeah. That's so funny. And not funny. That's ironic. I can't believe it. I love this.
And I also love that you said that, although you've done all of these things, the therapy, it really came down to you being a coach and a teacher. And you're what we call a 4-6 profile. And the 6 really is the teacher. They are the visionary. They're the ones that they often do feel different, especially in childhood, because they're, they kind of, I don't know, they see the world from a more mature kind of vantage point, if you like. They definitely kind of, they take a few more tumbles when they're little than some of the other profile lines. But to hear you say that coaching and teaching is your thing, and especially after the age of 50, this is when the role model, because the line 6 is called the role model, really, really amplifies. And for you to say that that's when your podcast actually started to really amplify, I was like, there it is.
That's so cool.
Totally geeking out on your human design. I love it. So we have to, of course, talk about this adult chair. I know you've kind of, touched on it already. And I love what you said, because my story is really similar. I found myself in the leading psychologist in anxiety in Melbourne when I was 28, which is a long time ago. And I was diagnosed with depression and panic disorder. And he said to me, you'll never heal it, but you'll find a way, you'll learn to manage it. And I was like, that's just not an option for me. That is just not a freaking option. So for me, like you, I went down this path of learning all these different modalities, reading all these books, trying all this stuff. What I really want to sort of dive down into is what is the adult chair, but kind of what are the different modalities? Because obviously it's yours now. And I think this is where human design really helps us to understand that we all have something very unique to offer. And I think sometimes when we go out into the world, we think, oh, well, it's this person's modality, or I have to have this certification, or I have to do it their way. No, it's all about creating your own thing. So I'd really love to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So your question is, what is the adult chair?
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is the adult chair?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So what I realized overseeing clients for over 20 years was that, people started, it was like the same kind of clients were coming to me. And what I realized was we all are looking for the same thing. It's like, how do we become healthy adults? What I mean by that is, how do we love ourselves? How do we have healthy relationships in the world? How do we ask for that raise if we're working, right? How do we have healthy friendships with others? That to me, I'm like, why is it that some people have healthy and some people have unhealthy relationships? Like, what's going on there? So again, through a lot of different mentors and trainings and all the things, I came up with, I wanted to explain to people, how do we break it down? And I found myself, I do a lot of experiential work with my clients, or I did when I see clients, but a lot of experiential work. So the adult chair is based on a few different things. Number one, it's based on these 3 different developmental stages of life. So this helps you to understand who you are and how you got this way. So we've got the child phase, which is 0 to 6, the adolescent, which is 6 to age 24, and then we've got adult from age 25 and on. So what happens is in each stage of life, we learn a lot of different things. So in the child phase or the child chair, we learn all about how do you feel emotions? What are your true emotional needs? Spontaneity, your passion, vulnerability, intimacy, play, fun, all these things we're learning when we're children. And then we move on to the adolescent phase, which is age 7 to 24. So it's pre-adolescence, adolescence, post-adolescence. Here's where this is when the ego more comes online. So this is all about really the separation from all that is, right? And our true essence. And we start building that false self of the ego. So then what happens now is I'm going to become whoever you want me to be so that I stay in my tribe, I'm loved, I'm accepted, all of those things. So this is when we start to morph. This is when I might become a perfectionist. This is the beginning. The seeds are all being planted. Perfectionism, codependency. This is when that judger, and all of these things start developing over these years. And then when we're around 25 and that prefrontal cortex comes online, we slide into what we call the adult chair. That is when we are living in the moment, living with consciousness, living with fact and truth. We respond versus react when we're in the adolescent chair. We are living with compassion for self and others. The problem is most humans, we emotionally go through this adolescent phase and then we get stuck there, emotionally speaking, but physically we're adults, right? So physically I look like I'm an adult, right? I'm married, I've got children, I've got a dog, the 2 dogs. It's like, I look like I'm an adult. My age says I'm an adult, but emotionally, I'm not showing up. I don't know how to set boundaries because healthy adults set boundaries,
that.
right?
Oh my God.
Right?
I can remember feeling that way. Like in my early 20s
right?
or in my late 20s, even I can remember feeling that way. Like I look like an adult on the outside, but I am so lost on the inside. I am just a child.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Sometimes it's not, and it could be, yes, that we're lost, but it also could be things. So what happens is, let me explain it like this. So energetically, like we're shifting chairs throughout the day. Sometimes I'm more in my child, sometimes I'm more in my adolescent, and once in a while I'm in my adult. So my job and my goal is to help everybody shift more into their adult, that healthy adult self. So another part of this whole adult chair model are the 5 pillars. So the 5 pillars teach us how to get in and attain that adult chair.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. I just had to jump in because we need to know how. We need to know how to integrate all this information. We live in the information age, but not enough people are actually telling us how to integrate it, to live it, to transform it. So this is exciting. Please keep going.
No, and that is what inspired me as well, because after all my research, all the trainings I did, all this, I'm like, I need to learn how to love myself. I want to learn how to feel less broken. I need to learn what's the how-to. Where's the how-to manual, right?
I get
there
it.
Wasn't any, right? They're like, oh, if you take this training, you'll feel better. I'm like, I feel a little bit better, but I need that very basic how-to. That's what my whole podcast is about. That is what this whole model is about. It breaks it down so anybody can plug in these tools today and start learning how to change yourself. So here are the 5 pillars. So again, this is after 20 years of clients. And they'd say to me, what do I need to practice on a weekly basis? Help me get in my adult chair. Here's what you do. Number 1, you got to own your reality. What that means is you got to look around yourself and say, okay, this is what's going on. Take your blinders off. Are you drinking too much? You got to own it. It doesn't mean you put it on Facebook or Instagram. You just own it for yourself. You get radically honest with yourself. Am I in a relationship that I'm not happy with? You've got to just get real with yourself. So that's number 1. Number 2, I feel my emotions. I can't tell you, probably 85% of the people that would come to me when I'd say, hey, how does that make you feel? We, as humans, we have a really hard time identifying what our emotions are. We've got to get back in our bodies to feel our emotions. Number 3, we have to learn how to manage our triggers so we don't blob all over other people, right? So if I'm triggered, I don't want to project all over you and dump all my stuff on you. There are ways, and I have many ways I have a whole trigger tool that we go through, and it's like, oh, this is what I do with triggers. In my opinion, triggers are a gift because they're revealing an unconscious belief that I have from my childhood that I don't know about unless I'm triggered or unless I'm doing hypnosis or something else. But it's a great way to learn about yourself when you're triggered. You just got to have the right tools. Number 4 is I build my self-worth. We go through life not feeling like we deserve or not feeling like we're worthy of fill in the blank. That's part of being a healthy human, a healthy adult. The last one is I set boundaries. I can't set boundaries if I don't feel like I'm worthy of boundaries. So they all weave together all 5 pillars. So that in itself, when we do this, this is how we live in and maintain our adult chair.
I love that. I love that so much. And, there's a couple of things there. One of the things is feel emotions. This is something I see in my community all the time. And I run a mastermind program, and it's, where people learn, they certify in human design, but we go through this process because human design is all about feeling. So we're moving decision-making from the head to the body, and each one of us. So for you, your emotions are actually the way you make your decision. You're designed to make your decisions over time. You're designed to wait for that emotional clarity. You're designed to sort of, and I'm an emotional authority as well. And I'm always joking. I'm like, we're only going to ever be 86% certain. That's not our energy. We're never going to be certain, like a lot of other people will feel very certain. But that's how we make decisions, with our body, through our emotions, and waiting for that emotional clarity. And I love what you were saying, because I know in this mastermind, I so often have this moment where I see one of my clients go, oh my God, I think my emotions. Like, like, I think there's so many people out there walking around not realizing that you're thinking your emotions. You're doing the work, but you're just thinking your emotions. You're not actually feeling them in your body. And I love this because it really helps people to, get out of that thinking phase and getting really physically into the body. Is there anything you want to respond to on that?
Oh my gosh, it's just really hard for people. Well, but this all happens when we're in the typically happens when we're in the child chair. So that's the age of 0 to 6. So you have to consider, and again, I always say to people, don't blame yourself, don't blame parents. Like, everyone's always we always are doing the best we can. But age of 0 to 6, think about what were you modeled when it comes to emotions, right? And like, was anyone there? Did anybody tend to you when you were crying, when you were sad, when you were in grief, when your goldfish died or your grandmother died? Like, who was there for you? So that's how you trace it back. Again, it's not necessary to do that, but it's such beautiful, beautiful work when you are able to tap back into the body. I've got a free offering, actually. It's the adultchair.com/inner child. Inner child work is one of my favorite tools for helping people to learn how to reconnect. One of my all-time favorites. Because the inner child is this beautiful way to connect to that younger child part of self and then release it, right? Let those emotions, we want to let the emotions process and metabolize through the body. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard for people, but even if you can't label an emotion, start out by just noticing, oh, wow, I have a knot in my stomach, or this little teeny tiny tightness in my throat or my heart. Like, oh, wow, what is that? Get curious, be with it. Don't, turn on TV or grab a glass of wine. Just let it be there. And because it's an energy, it'll morph and move through you.
Yeah,
so that's a great place to start.
That. I think one of the things that was so one of my real breakthroughs many years ago was the understanding that once I actually let myself feel an emotion, how quickly it actually moved. It was the resistance to the emotion that was the real discomfort, as opposed to the emotion itself. Now,
100%, for sure.
I want to ask you, because I think this is one of what I believe is that when we all globally learn to love, trust, and accept ourselves internally, then there is no other way but us to create a world of love, trust, and acceptance, as within, so without. So I want to go straight to you as the how-to guru. Like, how do we love ourselves? Like, can we dive into maybe one of the tools that you use for this? Like, I think it's the most important job we have as human beings is to learn to love, trust, and accept ourselves. So how do we do that?
I agree with you. And that is, again, I would go back to the inner child tool, because that's the part of us that needs it. So from my adult self, the woman I am today, I need to connect with that younger part of self. And that is where the magic happens. When we are connecting with that lost little kid within that is looking for those three things that you're talking about, that is when you start, then it translates into your current reality. You've got to start there doing that inner child work. And that means you show up for that inner child. You check in with them on a daily basis. You're asking how they are. You're asking how they're feeling. This does not take hours, by the way. It takes a few minutes a day. And you just don't, and again, you don't have to do it forever, although you certainly can, but you want to make sure that you're showing up for yourself in that way. That's how you do it. I mean, that is my favorite way, at least.
I love it. So we'll make sure we put that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because I was going to say that little kid needs to trust you, that adult us, right? And when we do that, forget it. Like, that's where everything changes. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I love that. And I want to talk a bit about trust. We'll make sure that we put that free tool in the show notes so that people can go and access, because I think that this is the thing about self-love. One of the sort of, what's the word I'm going to use? Maybe irritations is that there is this perception out there on Instagram that self-love is all about bubble baths and buying yourself an expensive handbag. And from my point of view, like, I feel like it's more derailing of people than really inviting people in, because self-love is so much bigger than that. It's this piece that you just said, trust with a capital T. How do we know? How do we know that we really do love, trust and love ourselves? Like, what are we going to be experiencing in our external reality that's telling us, okay, I really do trust myself. I really do love myself.
I think it goes back to still an internal environment. Like, what are you saying to yourself when you make a mistake? What do you say to yourself when you accomplish something that's amazing? How do you treat yourself? That's an indicator of where we are on that self-love scale. It's like, okay, wow, I just made a mistake. Do you beat up on yourself? Do you, go drink it away? What are you doing? What are you saying to yourself when you've made a mistake? Can you turn it around and go, it's okay. It's a mistake. It's not a big deal. Let me apologize and let me move on, or let me just, whatever. That is an indicator of where we are on the self-love scale.
I love that. So let's say for someone they're going on their journey, they're healing, and inevitably they're going to be faced with some big challenge. Let's say they're going through this journey and all of a sudden they realize that actually they are in a relationship that isn't good for them. And they kind of know cognitively, okay, this is where I need to go. But like, how do they start to really step into that self-worth and that trust in themselves when they're going through that big change? Like, how do they transition into that new version of themselves?
So one of my, again, I have a lot of favorite tools, but parts work. I love parts work. Now, I do spiritual parts work. I don't do IFS. It's similar to IFS because you're working with parts, but mine's more spiritual and working with the energy of the body. But what I love to do is to get in touch with the parts of myself that are blocking me from trusting, from making choices, from, if I'm in a bad relationship, let's say, what part of me is afraid to leave? What part of me is telling me to stay? What part of me is telling me, oh, it's not a big deal, when everyone else, my sister and my friends and my cousins and everyone else is saying it is a big deal? So what part of me is in denial? So when we work with those inner parts of self, and we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parts, but we have dominant parts that show up that are here to help to protect us and keep us safe. Their intentions are good. They don't know that it's actually hurting us, that they are actually hurting us. And they don't know, by the way, that I have a really healthy adult self that is in charge, because they've had to be in charge all these years. So when I come online in my adult chair as my healthy self, there's a lot of communication with these parts that happens. So I can let them know, I've got this. Guess what? I'm 55 years old. I've got this. This relationship, and here's what's true. This relationship is unhealthy. Here's why. I need to make some choices. I need you to give me some space. I need you to back up. I need you to fill in the blank, all the things we can say to these parts. And then they can settle down. When I show up as an adult, then they go, oh, I didn't even know you were around. I don't know who you are. Yeah, I haven't been around. Here I am.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
that is my go-to. And inner child work is a form of parts work. It's just a younger part of self. So
Yeah, I love that. I remember I actually learned part of my certification was parts work, and it blew my mind, once I
yeah,
realized that there are all these different parts, and it's in our language. It's right there. Part of me wants to do this and
always.
part of me wants to do that. And we don't even realize,
Mhm.
we think we're this one
Right.
entity. But really there's all these things going on. And that kind of brings me to the mind.
Mhm.
Obviously, with transformation, the mind is so important. And I think one of the things that people struggle with the most is really understanding that you are not your thoughts, that
Mhm.
you're the witness of them. And when we talk about changing our thoughts and improving our mindset, I know for me in the beginning, I was like, right, well, I'm just going to think something better and I'm going to work harder at that. And for a while that made things worse because I was just constantly in my own head going, oh, damn, I missed another one. So I would really love to hear from your wisdom, like when we're changing our mindset and we're dealing with these thoughts, and maybe we're going from having a lot of judgment and criticism going on in our head.
Mhm.
Maybe it's super busy. Maybe we've got anxieties. We've got all this fear of the future. Maybe we've got depression. So we regret for the past, all these things going on. What are the ways, or how do we specifically start to transition into this new mindset that
Mhm.
all of these gurus spout about mindset, but we have to get there? I'd love to hear your wisdom on
Yeah.
how we specifically get there.
This is magic. This is so many people have written in over the years and said, "Oh my God, this changed my life." So when we're in our adult chair, we speak in fact and truth in the moment. So we become what I call story busters
Oh, I love
because
that.
most of us live from the adolescent chair, right? We're in story. We're either going in the future or the past, the future or the past. I'm predicting what's coming. I'm making a story or assumption, what's coming, or I'm looking in my past. When we're in our adult, we go, hey, what's fact and truth right now? So if my head is telling me, oh my God, my boyfriend's going to break up with me, my husband's going to leave me, my wife's going to do this, whatever it might be, we stop and we say, okay, wait, what's true? And you slow your speech down. What's true right now in this very moment? 100% truth. What's true? And that clears all the cobwebs. It's like it clears all the stories. We bust open the stories and it's like, oh, well, my husband just hasn't talked to me all day. Okay, so what else is true? Well, he just got fired from his job. Okay, so what else is true? That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I remember I had a girl, a client many years ago who came running in my office and she sat down and she started crying and she says, oh my God, I'm going to get fired from my job. She was hysterical. And I said, well, my gosh, what happened? Well, my boss is going to fire me. I said, how do you know? And she said, because everyone in the company is starting to get fired right now. Everybody's getting laid off, da 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 da. And she says, and I'm the next one that was hired. I'm in line for getting fired next. I know I'm going to get fired. And in my office, I used to have 3 chairs. Actually, I had a lot of chairs, but I had 3 chairs set up. And I said, go sit in your adult chair. And she goes, I am right now. She goes, that's what's true. And I said, no, no, no. What is a 100% fact and true in this moment? And she goes, well, and she stopped crying. She goes, let's see, 6 people have been let go. I said, okay. And she says, as far as hiring goes, I am the next one as far as, what I think is going to be let go. I go, but is it true that you're going to be let go? She goes, no, but I'm, as far as hiring went, she goes, it could be me. I said, it could be. That's fair enough. I said, what else? She goes, that's all I know. I said, okay,
Mm.
so nobody told you're going to get fired? She says, no. And I said, but now what do we know about your boss? And she's like, oh, my boss loves me. He told me he can't imagine. Her boss was the CEO. She goes, he tells me all the time, he can't imagine me not being, working with him. I said, that's fact and truth. Feel that. And everything we did was, and feel the truth in that in your body. Feel it in your body. Feel it in your body. She completely stopped crying. She goes, well, gosh. At the end, she goes, maybe I'm not going to get fired. I said, we don't really know, honestly. But, in case you do, or in case there is a layoff coming for you, I would advise that you do a resume. But the hysteria, you haven't even been fired, and who knows? And she ended up getting let go like 6 to 9 months later. Like it was a long time because the company was folding. So but she already had a resume. She already had a job. It was no big deal. But the hysteria that she had in that day in my office, it was unnecessary. And then she was able to pull herself back into her adult, and it was fine. So she busted out all the stories, and it was easy.
Oh my God, I
So
love that.
what's fact and truth right now in this very moment?
I love that.
That's
I
the
love that you
question.
had 3 chairs. That's bloody brilliant. Like just moving people from each chair. I just think that's fantastic. So when you were speaking, one of the things I'm often curious about is this, this connection and how, like, let's say, whether I call it behavioral coaching or psychology or any of this sort of bumps into spirituality and let's say manifesting.
Mhm.
And I'd really love to just talk a bit about that. Like, when we are going through crisis and challenge, like you just explained with your client, and we live in a quantum reality. So what we're kind of putting out there, we're going to be hit with that in return. Now, I don't believe that we can just, like her, she can manifest herself just to get fired out of the blue like that, from that energy. But how do you think that, if we're not sitting in our adult chair, how do you think that that's actually influencing the reality that we're creating? Like, from your experience, like, do you notice that? I don't even know where my question's going now. It was so clear in my head, and then what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that, have you seen the link between, let's say, manifesting? People talk a lot about manifesting and this being in your adult chair. So what I mean by that is, do you find that people can create a more aligned life more easily by being in their adult chair, which is what we always talk about when it comes to manifesting?
Yeah, I would say that we're more we are intentional. When I'm in my adult, I'm intentional. I am clear. This is what I'm choosing for myself. And if anything's bumping into what my intention is, I'm going to work with that part. I'm going to get in touch with it. I'm going to let it know, hey, I'm here. I'm Michelle. I'm this many years old, all the things. What's in the way? And I'm able to anchor that intention in my body very, very well when I'm working with these other parts that are bumping into or giving me, let's say, resistance to what my intention is. So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
For sure.
And let's talk about getting into the body, because I think that this is a question my community talks a lot about, like, how do we do that? So how do you get people to get into their body?
Yeah. So like with our coaches, I train them with clients, you can start like at the top of the head and say, hey, let's just do a body scan. Okay. And there are many, many ways, but I'm going to give you a few. So let's do a body scan. So imagine you're going into like an MRI machine, head to toe, very, very slowly. And as you're dragging your awareness from head to toe, what are you noticing? Like, what are you feeling? And for the people that say, oh, I can't do that, I can't do that, I say to them, can you wiggle your toes right now? Yes. Wiggle your toes. Do you notice your toes are wiggling? Well, yeah, I feel that. I'm like, good, then you're in your body. Let's now move the energy from the toes up. Let's go up. Oh, well, that's cool. So people that have this very strong belief, I'm not in my body, I can't get in my body, I flip it around. There are times when I'll flip it around. Another way though is to when I did in-person sessions with clients, I would give them a little small beanbag. I'd put it on their lap and I'd say, can you feel the beanbag on your lap? So if I do Zoom clients, right, I'll say, grab some books off your shelf, put it on your lap. I'll say to my client, can you feel the books on your lap? Well, yeah, I can feel that. Then you can feel emotion in your body. Or I'll say, clap your hands really hard. Can you feel your hands? Can you feel the stinging? Yes. Then you can get in your body. So a lot of times people are just blocked and they're unaware of how much they actually do feel sensation in their body. And then it's about getting curious, because when we say to somebody, can you feel that emotion in your body? If you're an overachiever, you're going to be what I call chin up versus chin down. You're going to be like in your head going, let me see if I can feel that. Let me feel it. Let me feel it. And I can't feel anything. It's like, you're trying way too hard.
Yeah,
Let's
get
get really curious, right? No, let's get really curious and be really gentle. And it could be, and I'll say to them, like, it could be as soft as a feather on your hand. It's so, so, so gentle. So get really curious. And I go, oh, I did feel that. So think about something that made you afraid, and then think about something that made you feel love. Whether it's a puppy or whatever, or scared or angry, and then tune into your body there, and then feel something. And then let's have a memory when you were whatever at the beach with your family when you were growing up and you love that time. Oh, how does that feel? Oh, my heart's opening. There you go. So it's just pulling in little tiny ways and different examples like that to help them to understand you are in your body, probably a lot more than you even imagine. So start going there more and more. It's like Rome, go there, attune to that and go, oh my gosh, I am in my body. So if something bad happens during the day, or you get upset with your kids or your partner, whomever, pause and go, oh, how does that make me feel? You start asking yourself that question all the time. Then you start going, thinking, wow, I am in my body. I do
Mm.
feel that stomach ache. I do feel that tightness in my throat.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love the simplicity of the beanbag in the books, especially because I was that. Like, and
Yeah.
a lot of my community are high achievers, and one of the things that I know gets in my own way is I try too hard. Like I just have to let
Oh,
go
yeah.
and allow it to be. So I love the simplicity of it, because I think sometimes, I know for me, I thought it was all meant to be bells and whistles. I thought it was all meant to be fireworks. Like it's this big thing that you feel in your body. No, it's the things that you're feeling, the subtle energies, those little things every day.
Mm-hmm.
Out of curiosity, because I know you have kids,
Uh-huh.
I've just, as I was sharing with you before we hit record, I've just walked the Camino with my 16-year-old, and I have a nearly 12-year-old as well. And it was mind blowing just being there with him and watching him go through his own journey to understand the voice in his head and the judgment and the self-criticism and all these things that our teenagers are so exposed to at the moment. I would just really love your experience and wisdom. Like, how do we support our kids to, obviously they're not even in the adult chair yet. They're in this process, but how can we support them to navigate their own way into the adult chair over time?
Great question. I get asked this question for years all the time. The best thing that we can do to help our kids get in their adult chair is for us to show up in our adult chair. Because after the age of about 13, our kids are done listening to us, let's face it. Then they shift and they start listening more to their peers. And it's supposed to be like that. So that's for starters. You get in your adult chair. So that means, by the way, that you're healthy. That here are some examples of that. That I live more in the present moment. That I, again, own my reality. I take responsibility for things that I've done and not done. I apologize, and I apologize well. If my children or someone's apologizing me, I say thank you. I set healthy boundaries. I am calm. I'm not going to, again, when I'm in my adult chair, I don't want to give anyone the impression that I'm like zenned out, like in my lotus position every day.
We are all
it's like,
human.
No. I can set a hell of a boundary, and get angry sometimes when I'm in my adult chair. But I'm in the moment. That's the key here. Is I'm in the present. I'm in presence. I'm taking responsibility. I'm feeling my emotions. I'm doing all of these things. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It means that I'm doing my best to live there. That's number one. Number two, remember, our children have their own unique gifts in this world. They're here on their own journey. We may look at them and say, oh my gosh, I know exactly who they are, and I know what they have to do in order to accomplish that. Let that go. And I'm not saying to get completely disengaged from kids, but I say it like this. When children are babies, right? They're on a one lane expressway. We have to be the guardrails. As they grow up, our guardrails have to expand. So suddenly when they're 18, they're on like an 18-lane expressway, and we're way out here. Let your kids fail. Let your kids fall on their face while they're still under your roof, and let them bloom into the adults that they're here to become. We don't know who they are here to become. When my son, so I have a son that's, gosh, I forget, 25. And I have another son who is 20, he'll be 23. So my younger son, Blake, was this phenomenal soccer player from the time he was started when he was really young. And everyone said, going through school, he's the kid that was in the paper all the time and phenomenal, could have gone in scholarship anywhere for college. And I always thought he's going to play college soccer. I mean, for sure, he's the best soccer player. He's so great. He decided last minute, I'm not going to play soccer. I don't want to be married to my job, a soccer job in college. I was like, okay, I didn't get upset about it. I didn't get angry. I grieved it because I love watching him play. He's so fun. I had to let it go. I let it go. And the story gets better. Not just that, he goes off to college. His freshman year, he joins the fraternity. He does all the things. He's a smart kid. He's getting through school just fine. He comes home halfway through, like at Christmas break, and he says, "Mom, I don't think I'm meant to be at this college, at this school." I'm like, "Where do you want to go?" And we lived at the time in Nashville, Tennessee. And he says, "I need to move out to California." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Well, actually, I want to go to Colorado. I feel my heart is telling me to move west. I need to move west." And I
I
said,
just got
"Okay."
goosebumps. I got
Oh
like
my
the
God.
fact that
I
your
was
son
like,
says, "My heart is telling me." I just got goosebumps.
yeah. And I always said to both of my kids, follow your heart. Your heart won't steer you in the wrong way. Always follow your heart. I've said that their whole lives. He goes, "My heart's telling me I need to go west." And I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah, I need to move west." And I said, "Okay." And he started out trying to get into Colorado, couldn't get in there. That's a whole long story. Anyway, he came home at the end of that school year. Excuse me. He came home at the end of the second year school year, and he said, "Mom, through a series of coincidences, and there are none of those, as you know, everything's lined up perfectly, like stepping stones. I call it your illuminated path. Stepping stones will start showing up if you're paying attention." He goes, "Mom, I have a place to stay out in Washington State. I'm going." And I said, "Okay." He literally finished his second year of school, got in his car, and drove out west. And he lived in a tent on someone's property for the summer. And he thought it was the greatest thing ever. He enrolled in online school, and he is the coolest kid. I'm like, I never would have seen this coming. Now, this kid took a radical right turn, and it's perfect for him. And he
And it's
graduated college.
But it's
Oh,
beautiful, because I think this is the thing that so many of us as parents, like, we think we know better. We're trying to, tell them, these are my lessons, so don't you make the same mistakes. And for me, especially just because I've walked this, the last 6 weeks with my son, the most important thing I can teach him is to trust himself, to trust his direction.
yes.
I'm so grateful that I have human design, because both my kids know that it's all about their gut, like they've got a yes or a no in every moment. They're responding to everything. And if it's a yes, then do it. If it's a no, then don't do it. And it's just so beautiful to be able to raise children that trust themselves, because imagine as parents, like if I was in your shoes and maybe not in my adult chair, I would be like, "Oh my God, you're making a mistake," and all of these things, and da, da, da. So then he starts questioning himself. Yet it's the other way around. It's that beautiful journey of, all right, like, I've raised you to trust yourself, and I trust you because you're the one who knows best what's best for you. And I think that that's the hardest thing, and the most powerful thing that we can do as parents is to teach the kids that they know best for them.
Always.
I just love that
Always.
story. I think it's so beautiful.
Even when it scares the crap out of us as parents. And let me tell you, his path has scared me. He just got back from South America and Central. He lived there for 6 months in the jungle. I was like, but he's a freaking amazing kid. He's a huge meditator. He doesn't do alcohol. Like, he became this kid. I'm like, how did that happen? I didn't see it. That's the thing. We don't. And then my other kid is like, did what I call the ego pleasing path. Like, he went to college, he went to grad school, he moved to England, he came back, he lives in New York City. Like, that's the ego pleasing path. That very okay. The other one didn't do that, but we don't know what's best for our kids. Exactly. And they're both amazing kids. And I don't take credit for them. I take credit for, honestly, letting them follow their hearts and really having hands off more than on as I got older. I don't want people to think like, "Oh, you didn't raise your kid." No. I raised them with great boundaries and all the things, but I let them bloom. And I don't know what anyone is here to do. Our job as parents is to be there, boundarying them, but get looser and looser with those boundaries or wider and wider, I should say, as they get older.
Oh, I love that. And it so resonates. There was a discussion I had with my son while we were away, and I won't go into the details because it's not my story to tell, but I was very like, he shared something with me, and I was like, well, that makes me uncomfortable, but that's only because I'm your mother. But I trust you, so it was that whole being able to empower him through, this is how I feel, but I'm not saying don't do it or stop doing it or anything like that, because I trust that you're going to do the right thing for you. And I think that it's not easy, but it's incredibly powerful. And I think my eldest is probably going to follow a similar path. Maybe not. He's one of those kids that everyone's like, wow, you've done such a great job. And I'm always the same. I'm like, he popped out that way. I've guided him down a path, but he pretty much popped out that way. So yeah.
Yeah. I say the same thing. I'm like, nope, I don't take credit. He's his own soul. Like I'm really honored that they chose me as their mom, because it's really been fun.
I'm the same, far out. So Michelle, I am so excited. I really want people to come and find you on the podcast, the Adult Chair podcast. I know you've talked about it a little bit. I'd love you just to maybe tell me what you love the most about this podcast. Like, what inspired you to create it, and what do you love most about it? Because I really think my listeners need to go out and check it out, because I've gone down the rabbit hole and I'm loving it.
Thank you. Oh gosh. What inspired me in the very, very, very beginning, it was, I thought, I want to give my clients a free resource. That's what it's, I was like, okay. And this is, again, 2014. Like, who knew? I didn't even know what a podcast was, honestly. I was like, okay. And then as I went on, I mean, the emails and the, direct messages and all the things that come in, it moves me. Like, oh my gosh, to think. And again, over and over and over again, people say, this is like getting free therapy, free coaching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I had a lady that emailed in. I'll never forget. This lady came in and said, I have been in therapy for 10 years. I just listened to one of your podcasts on codependency. I don't remember which one it was. I've done 22. And she said, I finally now know what codependency is, thanks to your 45-minute show or whatever it was. And I thought, oh my God, you've been in therapy 10 years. So I really break it down. And it's just, honestly, Emma, I mean, this is how I think. This is how I think. So, and for me, again, my journey was, I wish someone would teach, I need the how-to manual. Where the heck is the how-to manual? And that's what everything I put out, from the coaching program to the podcast to my online courses, everything that I put out in the world, I break it way down so people can understand how to apply whatever the topic is and plug it into their lives today, because we want to change today. We don't want to change in 5 years. So what's something we can do today?
Oh, I love that. And I just want to,
inspires me. Yeah.
I want to geek out just a little bit on your human design, because you actually have a channel. So for those people out there listening, Michelle has a defined head and ajna, and the channel that she has is the 6447. So this is the energy. The 64 we talk about, this is like the universal dump of information. Sometimes people with the 64 can be, it's relatively common that people with the 64 might also be diagnosed with dyslexia, because what happens is that all this information comes in, and especially if they don't have get the 47 that you have, it's like making sense of that can be really difficult if you're not left alone to let it drop in and process. But because you have the 47, it's this energy that's all about, the intergenerational patterns and transforming the intergenerational patterns. So what you just said is exactly that. It's this energy of like taking all this big universal information and then just filtering it down so that people can change and transform their patterns for the greater good. So I love that.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. I love this human design. It's so amazing. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And there's so much leadership in your design as well. I'm just going to go through a couple of things just for my listeners, because they'll love it. Your personality sun, which is our most prominent energy, is in what we call the gate 1. And the gate 1 is all about creativity. It's the divine masculine. It's directional. It's this energy that if you are brave enough to sit in the lack of energy, the nothingness that can almost cause like a depression energy, if you're brave enough to sit in that and know that there's something coming, that when that spark of inspiration comes, it just expands into, greatness. Like it's very creative. It's very individual. It's also all about your voice, which I think is really important with the podcast. So the one is all about sharing your creativity through the voice as well. So,
I love it.
Then in your personality earth, you've got the gate 2, and this is actually the divine feminine. This is all about having all the resources that you need, that when you're in alignment and in your true direction, everything that you need will just, fall into line for you. It'll be those stepping stones that you were talking about. So you have this real balance, what grounds you, it's almost like what your life's work is that real like creativity, taking that out into the world, the doing, whereas what really grounds you and drives you to do that work is the being. So I think that a lot of what you were saying is really, really in alignment. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, like 100%. This is amazing.
I love it. There's so much more. I think one of the other things that is really that I want to share is that you have the 7 in a lot of, so the gate 7 is you've got a lot of leadership. You've got this channel which is the 31/7, which is the channel of the alpha, which is all about leadership. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful about your podcast is that you're obviously a leader in your field. You're a lead. There's this real like, let's go. And the line 6, we see that pattern that there's a lot of leadership. But one of the things that's really important about this energy is that you have to, it's what we call a democratic leadership. So my son my younger son is a Sphinx, and it's interesting watching him learn. He's like, come on, everybody, let's go this way. And he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to where the people want to be led. And this channel is all about, you will be the alpha and you will be followed as long as you listen to what the people need. And again, it's like you talk about your clients and how you've listened to their stories over the years and what they need. And then that's what you share, and you give people the free resources. So I love it. I just had to geek out a little bit on your chart because it's all there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I could go bang on about it forever. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited for my listeners to be able to find you. So obviously the podcast is The Adult Chair, and we're going to put the link in the show notes. Where else can they find you, Michelle?
You know what? I'm at theadultchair.com. Everything is there. So if anyone wants to join the next coaching certification program, you can find out more information there. We've got, again, online courses, membership, all the things are at theadultchair.com. The inner child was theadultchair.com/inner child. So, but everything is right there online. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've had so much fun talking to you and sharing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. This was so great. And I appreciate the mini reading I got today. This is great.
I might have to give you a bit more next time. Maybe I'll have some more for you next time when we do our other podcast.
When you're on my show. Yeah. When we're on my show, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm so excited to be back in Australia after my Camino adventure and experiencing all of these incredible up levels and these amazing guests that I get to chat to. So thanks for being here, and I look forward to having you on the next podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.